How's it going, everyone? Welcome to my video. I hope you are doing well. I am Daniel, and today we are going to be doing some chess tournament analysis. I played an over-the-board tournament recently, and you know how some people, and I'm not comparing myself, but Gotham Chess and like a lot of these creators, they'll make their tournament recaps. Well, this is mine, and this is my first tournament back in 3 months. It had been 3 months since I last played. Last tournament I played was quite the disaster, but that's not really the reason. It's just because of, like, just other reasons, outside of chess. But we are back at it, and we are very excited to kind of set the stage. This was a small local invitational private tournament. So the rating range of the players, the highest rated player was about 1950, and the lowest rated was about 1,000. So but a lot of players like above, say, 1,500. And so most of these are going to be players that I know that are like local and things like that. Also, there's a good chance these videos will be shared among my local chess circles. So if you are any of my opponents, shout out to you. But we're going to be looking at the games one by one individually. Well, they're probably going to be individual videos rather than all one. So I'll have 4 recaps for you in the next few days. And this first game that I played is a game that I played. Wow, we're off to a great start. I was playing Vincent Van Buren in round one. He is a 1,500. I think that's his floor, though, which means he's been as high as 1,700. And I had one game against him earlier in the year where it was solid, but then I found this bishop sacrifice. But he's overall a very solid player. Yeah, it was good to kind of like get to play him again. I believe he's a professor at A&M in like biology or something like that. So Mr. Vincent, if you're watching, shout out to you, and thanks for being such a gentleman and everything like that. So I had the black pieces, and obviously, first tournament back in a few months. There's a little bit of nerves as far as am I gonna shake off the rust? Am I gonna forget stuff and things like that? I was kind of thinking like before, like my openings are not gonna be very sharp. And if any of you follow my Instagram, which if you don't, check it out, I'll put a link in the description. I've been posting some like training updates, but they've mainly been just sort of doing some woodpecker method exercise and a little bit of just like opening refresh. I think after this tournament, I'm gonna do some more kind of intensive work and just deliver it, and just try to go from there and see if we can climb back over 1,800. Well, maybe or maybe not spoiler, because we don't know if we're over 1,800 now. Actually, not really. I mean, you can look up the results yourself, but I'll be posting these recaps. If you're interested in not having spoilers or anything like that, you can just wait to watch the next videos. But if you are, then you can just go to uschess.org and search my name and see how I did, because the tournament is published. So this is round one against Vincent Van Buren. I have I have black, and one of my main debates going to the tournament, and going to my last few tournaments, in fact, because it's been one recently, is against e4, like what to play. And obviously, there are many different options. My main opening for years has been e5. I used to play the French. I've been dabbling a little bit with Alekhine, so I didn't think it was going to be a good idea to do that in the tournament. Well, not that it wouldn't be a good idea, I just didn't want to. But the other opening I've been dabbling with is Sicilian. And Sicilian was one of my childhood openings. I tried Sicilian Dragon as black when I was a kid, then realized how sort of unstable it was at rating, so I just kind of quit. But I have kind of revived the Sicilian. Not any of like the Knight or for the Dragon or anything like that, but it's more of these like E6 structures, I believe, just is it classical Sicilian or I don't know. Taimanov. It's the Taimanov Sicilian I've been playing. And we may or may not see a game later, but against Knight F3, I've just been going E6. And, E6, Queen C7, Knight C6, and just trying to get a very solid game. But against C5, my opponent played Knight C3, which is the closed Sicilian. And just making sure everything's good. So Knight C3, the idea is that white is not necessarily trying to go like all out with Knight F3 and D4 and try to just make it some open game. The idea is to kind of make it a little bit more closed, and obviously there's some more flexibility. Like they might want to put the bishop out, or maybe if I develop my knight, they'll put the bishop on B5. I think F4 is in play, G3, things like that, even B3. So Knight C3 has its own sort of ideas, and I think a lot of it kind of depends on what black does. So I have a pet line against this. I'm not saying it's best, I'm not necessarily recommending it, but it's worked well for me so far. I'm trying to think. I think I remember off the top 3 games, including this, that I played with it. I remember 2 wins Well, no, you know what? I remember four games, and I think I'm 3-1. And the one loss was to like a 1900, but it was a very close game. And that's this move A6. Now, A6 to the untrained eye, you might think, what are you doing? Like, why are you just playing A6 on move two? That's it's a little bit ridiculous. But if you are a seasoned Sicilian player, just a seasoned player in general, you'll kind of realize that in a lot of these Sicilian lines, the move A6 is very useful. You prepare B5, you stop bishop B5. You also discourage bishop C4 because I could just land B5 with tempo. So A6 kind of has that idea, and I just like it because I like the potential to expand with B5. I also like the flexibility. I don't have to commit this knight necessarily or a pawn or anything like that. Um, what I will say, though, and this will come up later, is that I haven't really done much studying of the like the closed Sicilian. And when I did my brief opening study, I didn't really cover it. So I was just going kind of based off memory that I had studied like a long time ago. Mainly that and also intuition. So after a6, my opponent played d4, and I took. He played queen takes d4. I played knight c6. And here my pawn has a couple of options. You go queen d2, there's queen e3. I think even queen d3 is an okay move. And here he played queen e3. And this is already a moment where I'm on move 5 and I don't know what the move is. Now, I'm not trying to make myself out to be dumb or anything like that. It's just that I hadn't looked at this in a while and I did not necessarily know what the move was. Well, I knew the move was probably e6, but e6 scared me a little bit. You might be thinking, like, what's wrong with e6? Like, it seems like a perfectly normal move. Because my idea, like, and I knew this against, like, queen d2, and I think queen d3 as well, is you can just go e6, and you go knight f6, bishop b4, and, you're playing for d5 potentially, and you just have a solid game, right? So I knew e6 was a move. But then when I see queen e3, I suddenly have an apprehension against playing e6, because I realize, oh, e6, what if he just plays knight d5 and just makes things tricky? Because knight d5, obviously, if I take, he would take back. He's hitting my knight. If my knight retreats, there's d6. I was kind of seeing those lines. And if I just allow his knight to go to d5 and just say ignore it, maybe there's like knight b6. And I was like, I was not sure about that. So, you know what I did? I chickened out and didn't play e6. I played d6, which is an okay move. It's not a mistake per se, but it does. Basically, what I did is turned it into a variation, kind of like a Sicilian dragon, but as we'll see in the game, it wasn't really the setup to do it with. If I played e6, that would have been totally fine, and in the event of knight d5, it's just nothing to worry about. I could even take and be fine, I believe, because after pawn takes, I play knight e7, or sorry, the move is bishop e7. And then when he takes, I just write recapture, and I'm just fine. I mean, this pin is nothing really to worry about. I have a solid pawn structure, my bishop's out. It's nothing really to worry about. But after knight d5, I don't even have to take the knight. I can just go bishop d6, I believe was the move, if knight b6. Because now I'm threatening to take the knight. So for example, if he plays a move like bishop d2, then I take, and then I can go knight e7, because there's no more d6, because my bishop's on that square. So after bishop d6, my opponent goes knight b6, I just move my rook. And the knight looks scary on b6, but it is going to be loose ultimately. I have bishop c7 coming up next to kind of kick it away. And I'm kind of curious now that I actually look at this. What if a5? I go bishop c7 and a5. I mean, here it's even saying that you just chill after knight f6. And I guess the idea is that long term, this knight is not really doing anything. I mean, it looks good. It's supported by the pawn and all that. And there might even be some like knight takes a5 tactics. Well, maybe not because of knight takes c8. But I was like looking at this. But I was staring at this position for like a few minutes. And I'm like, I was just scared to play e6. Because what if he just throws in knight d5 immediately? And I'm like, So I didn't do that, but I'll know that for next time. So for next time, I can just play e6. And the theoretical move is white just playing knight f3, and then, okay, b5, but there's also queen c7. Okay, I'll look into this later, a little bit on my own. So I played d6, and we kind of see a little bit later, bishop d2, knight f6. I ended up turning into kind of a dragon Sicilian, which in this kind of particular setup with the knight on c3 out early and the bishop out, it actually wasn't the best idea. And we'll see why in a second. After castles, I play this move g6. And here, my opponent... Now, I play king b1, which is fine. I think as the computer thinks, it kind of realizes that maybe either way is not so bad. But what my opponent can actually do is, in this position, he can go knight d5, And that's actually an idea he tried a little later. The idea behind knight d5, if I take, he just takes back with the pawn, and my knight is just awkwardly attacked. And if knight e5, there's like h3. My knight is kind of awkward on e5. Like, it's actually going to be hard for it not to just be kicked out to like d7 or something like that. And then bishop c3 is coming. So after knight d5, if I just play natural move bishop g7, he has this move bishop c3. And that actually shows up a little bit later. The difference is that he did it a tempo too late to where it wasn't as effective. Or not until I messed it up, which we'll get into here in a second. But he can play his move bishop c3, and obviously if I take the knight, then he could actually just take back, I believe. And he just takes back, and he kind of has a double attack. And if knight e5, then again there's h3, and it's just a very wonky position because of my knight on e5 just being subject to attack. So after g6, my opponent played king b1, which is a very natural move. I believe Ben Feingold says always play king b1. You know, he says never play f6, always play king b1. The idea being that when you castle queenside, you want to play king b1 because that gives that does use an extra tempo, but you're making sure your king is protected properly when you play king b1, and also you're kind of stepping away from some potential open lines. So when you castle queenside, you generally want to play king b1. So after king b1, I played bishop g7, and then my opponent played this idea with knight d5. And knight d5 will actually give an exclamation point. Well, is it worthy of that? Yeah, I think it is. It's a good move because what he's trying to do, and it didn't really occur to me until this game happened, is after castles, he's trying to play bishop c3. And suddenly, I've never played the Dragon Sicilian. Well, I have. It's been a long time. And I'm like, bishop just goes to c3? Like, that happens? I think what's the case in normal Dragon Sicilians is, so Dragon Sicilian is like d6, d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3, g6. Most Dragon Sicilian players just play bishop e3 here. And you'll notice that in the game, the bishop was on d2. Well, the bishop was on d2, the queen was on e3. So even if black tried something like, white tried something like queen d3, bishop g7, it's just not the same here. Well, also the knight's on d4, which kind of like doesn't really help necessarily. But you kind of see how there can be some subtle changes. And the idea behind bishop c3, which I should sort of like elaborate on, is that when you have this bishop fianchettoed on g7, it's normally like you see in the Dragon Sicilian, you see it in the modern, you even see in some e4, e5 openings where you play an early g6. The bishop is a rock-solid protector of the king, and if the bishop gets traded, like imagine the bishop's just gone, there are some holes, there are some open holes on the king side, and it gives white opportunity to just kind of smash through, and you have the queen well positioned, and the rook is obviously, I mean, you know, white castle queen side, so the rook is just going to be sort of in line to attack. So it's a very scary proposition when there is a potential dark square bishop trade. Normally it occurs like when the bishop and queen are switched and the bishop goes to h6. But here, he's trying to force the issue by going bishop c3. Now, after bishop c3, I kind of look at this and realize, well, okay, I can just play knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, then play my move knight e5, which, as we saw in some earlier variations, it's not that great, because after h3, my knight is just very awkward on the e5 square, and soon enough, he's going to trade. So the best line of action was to take on c3 and then play knight e5. Now, I think the reason here that's a little bit more fruitful is because if white plays a move like h6, there's like bishop f5 and rook c8 coming, which we'll kind of see a little bit later in the game. And I guess in this variation, it's not as feasible because if I play bishop f4, there's like f4. Wait, no, what am I talking about? A trade occurred and then knight e5. Yeah, I think, I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to, like, take a minute to actually look at the position to kind of notice the differences, but basically, it was better for me to have traded first. You know what the reason is? When I trade and he goes queen takes, the queen is on the c3 square, and I can immediately attack it. Well, not literally the next move, but then I can play bishop f5. So if I play like bishop f5 here, I mean, he just has, like, f4 or g4, and it just doesn't make sense. So after the move h3, which h3 is a good move, because otherwise I'm threatening to go knight g4, attack the queen, hit f2, but also hit c3. So if he just plays a move like knight f3, then I have knight g4. attacking the queen is overloaded, so the queen's defending c3, which if I were to take it and the queen's not defending, he'd have to wreck his pawn structure, which is, just very devastating, but also you're protecting f2. So if you just play like queen e2 or something, then I take c3, and this is just completely winning. If you go queen d2, I mean, you're still protecting both, but I still get to take. Because if queen takes, I take f2, and if pawn takes, again, that's just completely winning. So h3 is a really good move to just kind of prevent this whole knight g4 nonsense, and then next, he can have an idea of like f4, and then just kind of kicking my knight away and ultimately trading bishops. Also, one thing I think I should mention, I kind of gloss over it a little bit, is that my best course of action was to trade the bishop first. And, it looks scary to me. I'm like, it looks like this queen is kind of like darting through the dark squares and like everything like that. But after knight e5, I mean, again, there's just like threats of bishop f5, rook c8. Because of the trade that I made on c3, it kind of forces the queen to a square where I'm starting to attack anyway. Like, literally my only open file is the c file, and I just kind of like put my pieces there. So shout out to my opponent for playing h3 there. So after h3, I played the move queen c7, just kind of like stepping off this line, like in case like anything weird happens. And also I'm thinking about, okay, maybe I'll like plan a knight into c4 and like everything like that. If I'm going to trade bishops, I might as well do it on my terms, right? So then my opponent plays f4, and as you can see from the eval bar, my opponent's having a pretty comfortable position here. And if he just plays the next few set of moves comfortably, or no, if he plays the next set of moves just like normally, I guess I should have said, then my position's very uncomfortable. It's going to be a long struggle. So after f4, I do play the move knight c4. I mean, might as well just put the knight on the square that I can kind of prepared it with the queen. And I'm fine with a bishop trade. Like, I'm totally fine if you want to trade the bishop for the knight. Like, that is cool with me. So that's what he does. Bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes, king takes. And in this position, all my opponent really needs to do is play knight f3. Knight f3, you develop the last piece, you connect the rooks. And then there's some ideas of like rook d4 attacking my queen, and there's g4 ideas. And essentially, just look at this position. Like, the only piece I have developed is the queen. Now I could put my bishop out in one move, but I only have my queen out. He has all his pieces developed. Now, granted, we've traded a lot of pieces, so there aren't that many pieces left to be developed. But I'd say most importantly, he has just like g4 coming. Like, literally g4 f5, maybe even like h4, depending on the particular setup, and like what to do, right? Like it would be a really tough position to defend without my dark square bishop, and like now I can't really go bishop f5 because of g4. Well, I mean technically bishop f5. He played knight d4. Knight d4 would be the move because obviously I'm attacking c2, right? So after king takes g7, if he just goes knight f3 or even g4 or something like that, he's doing really, really good. You just gotta be patient. But instead, he noticed there's a pawn on e7 and takes the forbidden fruit. On queen takes e7. Now, it's not super duper obvious why it's a blunder. It's not like I have a way to trap the queen or anything like that. But funnily enough, my bishop were developed. Rook e8, well, not really almost. I mean, you can go either way. So it's not like you're really trapping the queen or anything like that. And one thing I should notice before I kind of move on to the next variations is that I did miss that my pawn was hanging after knight c4, but it doesn't really matter because he can take it, right? Or he can't really take it. So after bishop takes, king takes, and then I realized, okay, I mean, if he takes, at least I have queen takes f4. But I saw this on the board, and I'm like, I see a vulnerability. If you've been watching this recap so far, you probably can sort of deduce what I'm talking about, which is that I have this move, bishop f5. I'm attacking c2, and he has, like, little resources left to defend it. His queen kind of wandered off on e7, and I just played bishop f5, and my attack is just overwhelming. Like, I'm threatening c2 if he puts extra protection on it. I have rook c8. I have, like, rook e8 ideas, and yeah, it's just not looking good. The knight can't really help. See, if the knight were on f3, then he could play, like, knight d4, and where you're attacking my bishop, but also protecting the pawn. So it's just kind of one of those situations. Like, he takes the pawn, then I go bishop f5 and attack c2. So my opponent plays queen e2, and here in this position, once again, I play what is not the only move necessarily. The second best move is queen takes f4, but I never really want to do that because it kind of allows him to develop. what I want to do is just kind of like keep the initiative. And the initiative is basically in chess where you're just like, I think it's Jeremy Selman wrote, is you're calling the shots. So, like when I play bishop f5, I'm making a threat. This next move with rook c8, I'm making another threat. I'm threatening to like take. I can maybe trade queens and then take. So just notice these next few moves, like literally just about all of them, like I'm making a threat. So after rook a to c8, my opponent really just needs to kind of just coddle and just play rook c1. I think as Levy Rosman says, make a cocoon or something like that. It's a humiliating move to play, but so I understand why it wasn't done. He played rook d2, which doesn't really work because I have this move rook f to e8, and once again, I attack the queen. If he trades, or if he tries to trade queens, then I just have rook e1, and I just back rank mate him. So the problem in this position is not only his lack of development, but also he has a back rank issue with the king. So there's not very much that he can do in this position. He tries to hold it together with queen f2, but after queen f2, I am winning here in this position. My first move, the first move I thought about was this queen sacrifice with queen takes f4. The idea being that if queen takes, then I get my back rank mate with rook e8. But I do think it's important that sometimes when there's like a flashy move or a move that looks fancy and things like that, to kind of be a little bit skeptical. It can be easy to just kind of like play for the glamour, like, oh, I'm just going to play queen takes f4. As you see from the eval, it's not, okay, I guess you could say it's a blunder, but it's not like it's losing or anything like that. You do want to like just blunder check and everything like that. And the reason why it's not that good, and I realized it during the game, is my opponent just goes knight f3. So he blocks the queen's attack and also gets his last knight developed. And like, okay, I mean, like I'm still completely winning, but you know, it would be a little bit more difficult to do so. So after queen takes f4, I didn't really do that. Another option that I will point out is this move. I could play queen takes c2. I did briefly consider that, kind of sacrificing the queen. The idea being that after rook takes, I play rook takes, and I'm attacking the queen, and I also, of course, have this attack going. I just didn't know what happens after queen d4. As it turns out, apparently after king f8, he plays knight f3. I can win the queen back. At the end of the variation, I play bishop e4. I'm going to pick up a pawn, and it's a really good position for me. I mean, his king, once again, has back rank issues, and once I take, like, g2, he's going to end up with, like, split pawns. In fact, after rook g1, I would just take, and, like, all these pawns are isolated. So it is a winning endgame for me, but I also understand why it would be kind of hard to go into. But the move that I play is I play the bishop sacrifice, bishop takes c2. In this position, well, it's not even really a sacrifice because, well, he plays king a1, obviously king c1, I mean, probably just walks into whatever mate I want. And if he takes the bishop, then, well, I have two ways to do it. I can play rook e1, then after queen takes, so I'd be sacrificing my rook as well. So I sack my bishop, and then I sack my rook with rook e1. The idea being that I recapture the rook and then get mate. So after queen takes, there'd be check, king a1, and checkmate. After, of course, queen takes, rook takes would be checkmate. The other way I can do it is I could just take the rook, actually, and then I get this combination with rook e1, and then I get a double rook mate. Either of those would have been pretty fancy. Obviously, my opponent's going to try and make me work for it. He's not just going to get mated, so he plays king a1. In this position, I play move bishop d3, which I didn't give an exclamation point, but I really liked because it prevents any like queen d4 nonsense from happening. And of course, I'm threatening mate. If he develops his last piece, I still mate him with queen c1. And then, you know, when the rook takes, I just take back with checkmate. So my opponent here played a3, just trying to like theoretically clear the back rank. But in this position, I have a forced mate after queen c1. Queen c1, king a2, and then it looks like it might look like, you know, I go queen b3 and chase the king or whatever. It's still completely winning. But you have to look at this position, be like, where's the king going, right? Or not where the king's going. Like, what am I doing, right? Like, how am I mating him, right? So the move here in this position is after king a2 to realize that it's actually best to leave the queen here by going bishop b1 check. After bishop b1 check, if the king goes to b3, then I have mate in one with queen c4, because now I'm protected by the rook, and the bishop takes away the a2. Well, I guess the queen does too. But basically, I am mating him on the spot, and if he goes king a1, then I just have the mating pattern with bishop c3. In this position, my opponent resigned because I have queen b1 check coming next, and that will be checkmate, because my bishop takes away the b3 square. So that said, it was a pretty good game. I was pretty happy about that. Obviously, I was not off to a hot start. At the maximum, my opponent had a very solid, I believe, +1 advantage in this position before ultimately blundering with queen takes e7. Had he played knight f3 and kind of recognized he needs to just kind of go all out on the king side and develop his pieces, it would have been a struggle. Who knows? Maybe it would have won anyway, but it would have been tough. But it was a really solid game by my opponent until queen takes e7. Then everything just kind of faltered. I think it was also worth noting that I kind of realized this during the game or during the recap, but just about every move after this was a threat. So bishop f5 threatens c2, rook a c8 threatens c2 once again, rook e8 attacks the queen, then bishop takes c2, well, obviously I'm attacking the king. Then after king a1, bishop d3 threatens mate, and then I mean just from there it's just like it was just kind of a bloodbath a little bit, right? So it was just one of those. It was a very solid win. I was very happy, and I moved to 1-0. And we'll see in the next video how I do in rounds 2, and then kind of like moving forward. I just want to say real quick that like sometimes I do these recaps and it's against like players I know and like they might watch the video, especially if it's being promoted and things like that. And I just want to say like especially if I'm commentating a game where I win or you know the person I'm commentating loses or doesn't play well and things like that. I hope I'm not being too critical. And obviously if I'm being critical of someone's play, it's nothing like you know personal or me trying to be mean or anything like that. I'm trying to just be like instructive and you know, my opponent made a mistake, you know, just point it out. But if I made a mistake, you know, I was pretty self-critical of myself when I played, you know, this whole line with like, you know, this kind of making up this dragon with d6 and g6 and not realizing and at the same time giving credit to my opponent for finding this idea with knight d5 and bishop c3. I thought that was very clever actually. So just you know if you're watching this Vincent or even my future opponents, it's all in good fun. I really enjoyed the games. That said, I will let you all go. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. And if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'll be posting more tournament recaps and just kind of general improvement journey and things like that moving forward. And thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all for the next video. Peace.